Hello, this is Jim Strohecker, President and co-founder of Well People. Welcome to our Enhancing Student Wellbeing webinar on using the wellness inventory in college curriculum. And today we're going to explore the foundations of our whole person wellness model. We'll have a live demo of the wellness inventory program so you really get a chance to see how it works. And we'll also be showing you how you can integrate the wellness inventory very easily and seamlessly into college curriculum, and also our simple implementation model. So to get started, the wellness inventory is a whole person assessment and life balance program. It's an online program that's been developed that can help support college students on their journey to personal well-being, while providing students with a context for deeper engagement in their own wellness and allowing them to develop internal self-management skills to serve them throughout their life while supporting a culture of well-being on your campus. And we have some good news I would love to share with you that just recently West Virginia University's Enhancing Wellbeing project based on our Wellness Inventory program just won the 2014 Aetna Award from the American College Health Association for Wellness Innovation for College Students. So this is really a wonderful program, very innovative, and one that's really designed to be able to work really well on a college campus. Before we start, though, we really need to get clear on what do we even mean by wellness. We may sort of assume that we all have the same understanding and have the same perspective, but there's really two major perspectives out there today that you really could sort of boil it down to. And one is really a disease model approach to wellness, and this is one where the driving factors or the terminology you're constantly hearing is lowering healthcare costs, reducing health risk, preventing illness, and managing illness. And you commonly see these in corporate wellness programs, but it's sort of a way our culture tends to look at health and wellness. And the other, which is really the original wellness model, which is reemerging now, is a whole person model of wellness. So it really does depend upon which lens are you looking through to get the outcome that you're wanting to achieve. Are you looking at a more limited disease model or a whole person model? And there's a very famous quote that helps to illustrate this. This is from the World Health Organization, from the preamble to their constitution right after World War II in 1948. And there's really two parts to this. And the first part is really the whole person model, and the second part is sort of a disclaimer that this is not the disease model. So the first is, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And the second part, and not merely the absence of disease and infirmity. So that's where you really get the difference here. The whole person model is looking at the complete state of health. And I've been told that originally that they had spiritual well-being in here as well, but for whatever reason removed it originally. But in our culture, we tend to look at health as being the absence of illness. If I go to the doctor and I get a, quote, clean bill of health, meaning there's nothing demonstrably wrong with me, then I assume that I'm healthy. And really all it means is that I'm not ill, I'm not sick. So there hasn't been a frame of reference to look at, is there something beyond simply not being ill? And one of the biggest fans of this World Health Organization definition was also a WHO consultant, Dr. Halbert Dunn, who, among other things, is considered to be the father of the modern field of vital statistics. He was actually chief of the National Office of Vital Statistics till 1960, and he was quite a deep thinker as well, and a philosopher. So he was looking at vital statistics and trying to determine what are the reason for all the health disparities in our culture and among different demographic groups and different regions. He began to evolve during the 1950s his high-level wellness theory. When he retired, he gave a series of lectures that was published as the book by the same name in 1961. And I pulled this quote out of the first chapter, because this is really one of my very favorite wellness quotes. And incidentally, Dunn is also considered to be the grandfather of the wellness movement. This is the seminal original book of wellness theory. And here's the quote: "High-level wellness is an integrated method of functioning oriented towards maximizing the potential of the individual within the environment within which he or she is functioning." And so the first part, this integrated method of functioning, if you look at the cover of the book, you see three concentric circles and the arc going up. Now, the three concentric circles in Dunn's whole person systems model represented body, mind, and spirit. So here you have the original foundational wellness theory, which was purely a whole person wellness model. And today, I think we've seen that we've really diverged, and I can talk a bit about that. But Dr. Dunn had a big influence in the early 60s and sort of waned. And then in the mid-70s, all of a sudden, there were a number of people who were deeply influenced by his work, one of which was my good friend and the creator of the Wellness Inventory and a wellness pioneer, Dr. John Travis, who's considered to be one of the, really sort of second in line from Dr. Dunn, but there was a few other doctors and psychologists right around the same time or a little later that really helped to launch the wellness movement. And Travis was really interesting because in the early 70s, he was completing his residency in preventive medicine at Johns Hopkins. He was an officer in the U.S. Public Health Service. He was a protege of Dr. Lewis Robbins, who was the creator of the field of prospective medicine and also the creator of the health risk appraisal or the health risk assessment, the HRA. And Travis worked on the first computerized HRA for the CDC, so he was well aware of the power of the HRA, but he was also really aware of its limitations. And he was really looking for next steps. One day he discovered a dog-eared copy of Dr. Dunn's High-Level Wellness in a used bookstore at Johns Hopkins, and it really fired his imagination, and it really provided a missing piece in the evolution of his own theories and thinking. So when he completed his residency in early 1975, he went to California, and he created the first wellness center in the U.S., actually the first in the world, named the Wellness Resource Center in Mill Valley, California. And this was an amazing place that, although he was a physician, this was where people came to learn to be well. And they did facilitation and workshops and retreats and group work, worked with consumers and also worked with health professionals and helping professionals. And he created the Wellness Inventory in 1975 as a whole person intake for the clients coming to the center. And this was the first wellness assessment ever created and the first whole person assessment. And this was used in the facilitation process. And interestingly, the facilitation process was one of the forerunners of modern coaching because in actuality, it was identical to what we're doing today in wellness coaching. Each of the clients who came to the center would sign a statement saying that I recognize that I'm the ultimate expert in my own life, and that the facilitator is here not to teach me or to guide me, but more to help me and support me in coming up with my own solutions in the context of my own unique life. And the work really drew a lot of national attention. So Dan Rather came in there from 60 Minutes in 1979, and interestingly, this is only 35 years ago. And he starts his piece by saying, wellness. Now, there's a term you don't hear too often these days. So he felt that he needed to qualify the term wellness. We sometimes forget this is really a new concept. Dr. Travis was able to gather, the essence of what he was doing at the Wellness Resource Center in his classic book published in 1981, the Wellness Workbook, still still in print and being used worldwide. It was used very, very heavily in education over the years, particularly in university campuses, also with health professionals. And Travis also wrote Wellness for Helping Professionals, which is out of print, and that was really the seminal book bringing the wellness concept to health professionals, and particularly dealing with helping professional burnout, which was really a unique thing that we're also continuing to do today. And I wanted to share just a few of the key concepts, but also some definitions from Travis of what he means by wellness. So he says that wellness is a choice, a decision you make to move towards optimal health. Wellness is a way of life, a lifestyle you design to achieve your highest potential for well-being. Wellness is a process, a developing awareness that there is no end point, but that health and happiness are possible in each moment, here and now. Wellness is the integration of body, mind, and spirit, the appreciation that everything you do and think and feel and believe has an impact on your state of health. And then finally, and possibly the most fundamental, wellness is the loving acceptance of yourself. And now I want to share 3 key concepts from Dr. Travis, also in the Wellness Workbook. The first is the Illness-Wellness Continuum, which he developed in 1972. And you'll notice as you look at it, on one end, on the left, is moving towards premature death. On the right, to high-level wellness. You have a neutral point in the center. The treatment paradigm basically moves from premature death through disability signs and symptoms to get you to this neutral point where there's no discernible illness or wellness. So basically you have a clean bill of health. There's nothing wrong with you. And so that's really the paradigm of treatment or the disease model. It's not trying to optimize health beyond that, but basically just to remove any problems. You'll notice that the wellness paradigm actually spans from premature death to high-level wellness. And one of the keys here is that through awareness, education, and growth, individuals can be moving from whatever state they're currently in to a higher level of well-being. And the way it's structured here, it makes it look like it starts at the neutral point. But one of the beauties that Travis recognized was that it didn't matter where you were on the continuum. You could have a chronic or life-threatening illness, a disability, poor, fair, good, or excellent health. But wherever you were, on a daily basis, there's small choices, decisions, there's an outlook that you cultivate that can all have a big impact on your current level of health and well-being. So it really becomes more of a direction or an attitude and a recognition that I have the ability to improve my level of health and well-being on an ongoing basis. Because many of us in our culture feel that, I go to the doctor to tell me whether I'm healthy or not, and we don't really feel that we have a real distinct impact on our health and well-being. Or if we realize that we do, we don't believe we have the self-efficacy to create the improvement or the change to help have that positive impact, because the times that we tried, we failed. And this next slide really helps to illustrate that. So you have the woman on the top, and her attitude is that she sees the ability, even within her frame of reference of having, in this case, a disability that somehow restricts her in some ways, but she sees that, she can, with her positive attitude, the glass is always half full. She's looking towards the possibilities of a higher level of well-being and acting to create that on a daily basis. You see her wheeling with a big smile on her face. The gentleman on the bottom is sort of the person who doesn't really feel they have much of an impact on their health and well-being, and that he may have gone to the doctor and said, Jack, if you don't get yourself in shape, you're going to have a heart attack and die. So he has the fear of God, and he's really sort of frantically, running, trying to prevent this, this horrible outcome that that's been put in his mind. And he's seeing the glass half full. You notice he's not running towards high-level wellness because he doesn't even have a frame of reference that he can improve his level of health and well-being. He's just thinking that maybe if I can just run, mechanically speaking, I can avert this crisis, but he's actually heading towards premature death. The second model is the iceberg model of health, very straightforward. Your state of health is really, what you can measure and what you can observe. But what we're looking at with a wellness inventory is what influences your state of health and well-being. So with a wellness inventory, we're exploring beneath the surface, exploring the lifestyle and behavioral level, the psychological motivational level, and also the spiritual being and meaning realm. And the way that we do that, the frame of reference that we use, is the wellness wheel, more formally called the wellness energy system. And Travis referred to it that way, simply put, because it's a tool for being able to be aware of and manage your energy inputs and your energy outputs. And in our culture, we tend to minimize our positive input, like in terms of how we eat, how fully and how deeply we breathe, and the positive things we're bringing into our life. But we over-output, and now we're sort of going 24/7, and we're wired to every conceivable device, so we're constantly outputting, and we're not putting enough back in, so that's really a recipe long-term for burnout and for basically ill health and low performance. So it's sometimes easier just to look at these as 12 core life processes. And these are 12 core life processes that all humans are doing on a daily basis. And for the most part, we tend to be unaware of most of them, and most of them sort of tend to run on autopilot, so we don't really do them very well because we've never really paid attention to them. So there's a lot of room for optimization. But one of the beauties here is that each of these core life processes impacts the whole, either positively or negatively, and also it has an impact on all the other dimensions because they're all interconnected. We refer to this as the holographic growth process in our own course. And looking at it another way, so here's from the perspective of a student. So here's the student in the center of the wheel, and you can see that the student is connected to all of these core life processes. It's not something that they need to learn because they're already doing them. They're simply becoming more aware of what they're already doing on a daily basis. I sometimes like to refer to this as the human operating system. And just simply put, if we start, the foundation is self-responsibility and love. And because without a sense of self-responsibility and without a positive sense of regard for oneself, it's less likely that one will want to sustain activity, positive activities to take care of themselves. And I love to look at self-responsibility really as the ability to respond as opposed to react, because when we're stressed, we're sort of like the horse with blinders. The entire wheel sort of shrinks under stress, and our capacity to perform is also compromised, and we tend to be more reactive. So, and when we react to what's happening around us, we simply tend to do our habitual activities and sort of the path of least resistance. Whereas when we're more present and more aware and more mindful, we're more able to respond to what's happening around us and to make a choice. And that's where you're able to start creating improvement in your life as opposed to just automatically doing the behaviors that you sort of your default go-to behaviors when you're under stress. Now, as we go around the wheel, you'll see that all of these are core life processes. So starting with breathing, this is the first thing that we do when we come out of the womb, and the last thing we do before we expire, literally our last breath. And in between, we have approximately 1 billion breaths in an average life, and this is one of the greatest self-regulators of our internal environment that most of us know nothing about. And incidentally, in some classes, students will report that this was the one dimension that they thought that was the most important and the one that they most wanted to improve and also were the least aware of prior to taking an assessment. Then we have the sensing dimension. We sense our world around us. That's our situational awareness, our ability to understand what's happening around us, to respond and act appropriately, And you know what it's like when it's sort of like when your head's in the sand, you're not really that aware of what's happening to you. You're not seeing the body language or the facial expressions or potential threats or potential opportunities that are happening around you. So it's really being alive. Then the eating dimension, we eat to bring nutrition into power our bodies, and sometimes we really neglect that and don't do that very effectively. We move, we feel or experience emotions. We have cognitive processes. We think, and sometimes we just can't turn it off, and we're thinking all the time and thinking repetitive thoughts and thinking negative thoughts, and we lay there in bed at night not being able to turn it off, so we can't sleep. And this is a real common problem with students. We play and we work, and students are probably a little bit more in touch with play, but as we become adults, particularly in the modern 21st century, we find that our demands for work are far greater, and the capacity to play or to recreate, that one thing we can do to really help to replenish ourselves and to recharge, tends to get diminished. And even when we're doing the life part of work-life balance, we find that also is just full of tasks and activities, and we just can't find the time to play and take care of ourselves. We communicate. We experience intimacy. And here we're not simply talking about sexual intimacy. We're talking about 12 different types of intimacy that human beings can experience with friends and associates and family and significant others. And it might be a shared love of art or music or of a particular sport. It could be shared experiences, intimacy around being from a particular location or a particular town. So it's really interesting that there's so many opportunities to expand one's social world and to have more meaningful, intimate interactions. We search for meaning, and sometimes we feel that there is no meaning in our life. And we experience the transcending dimension, which refers to overcoming obstacles. And if you're familiar with Csikszentmihalyi's work on flow, he's one of the founders of positive psychology. Being in a state of flow, or as athletes often say, being in the zone, is sort of when everything is clicking. All the dimensions are firing together, and you're able to perform at a higher level seemingly effortlessly, just in a state of flow. So those are the 12 dimensions. And now another way to look is to look in a practical way is of how might focusing on one dimension have a positive impact. So let's take breathing as an example. So those of you who've done some form of self-regulated breathing, it might have been in a stress management seminar, it might have been in a yoga class or meditation, and if you've done that, you might even just practice now, just paying attention to your breath and just allowing your breath to come in and go out in a smooth and effortless way. And just notice how that begins to just sort of calm you down, and how your mind and body can begin to relax. It's sort of like a letting go type of experience. And people have been, and you can just stay with that as I'm talking, and people have been doing breath awareness practices and exercises for thousands of years. There's quite a science behind it. And I'm just going to go around 5 dimensions here, so that if someone's doing calm, self-regulated breathing, that's really beginning to balance our autonomic nervous system, there are certain definable things that happen. As I go to the sensing dimension here, one of the things that people often mention is that my sensory awareness is heightened when I'm breathing this way. I see more, I take in more, I just have greater consciousness, greater awareness of everything around me. And with the eating dimension, if someone is eating, while they're eating, if they're breathing in this manner, in a slow, methodical manner, they find that they eat more slowly, they chew more, they digest better, and they're able to actually eat less. So it's really a great practice for mindfulness, just to really help to control or manage your eating, and sometimes even to manage your weight. And what about moving? In martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, swimming, running, many other sports, people find that when they coordinate their movement with their breathing, that the movement becomes far more dynamic and fluid and powerful. And what about the feeling dimension? If you remember a time when you might have been standing around with a friend and one of you was really beside yourself, well, the other person, and really upset, the other person more than likely put their hand on the other's shoulder and said, Jim, take a breath. Take a breath. Because we intuitively know the relationship between breathing and how it calms our emotional state. And I'll just do one more, the thinking dimension. In meditation and stress management, it's almost like a mathematical axiom. When the breath is calm, the mind is calm. It's that simple. So here you have, and I could continue around the wheel, but here, just doing the simple breathing practice, you notice that it's having positive impact on all of these dimensions. Imagine doing this over a period of time, how this could help with your mental and emotional state, your focus, your ability to move fluidly, being more mindful of your eating, and improving your diet, knowing when to stop, and having greater sensory awareness around you. But often, what people, without this type of frame of reference, people will just say something like, "Oh, I feel really relaxed," and that's all. And that's sort of all they have, and that's a very general statement. This allows you to really get specific and to truly appreciate what the benefits that you're receiving. So the wheel is an organizing principle for our own personal experience. Is quite amazing. So here's a little graphic showing what I just went through. So increasing the sensory awareness, eating slower, eating less, the dynamic fluid movement, emotional balance, and the focused, calm mind. And incidentally, we have an exercise we refer to as taking a spin on the wheel, where you can take something like a positive activity like this and look at what is its impact on each of the 12 dimensions, and also what awareness or self-care practice there might be within each of the 12 dimensions to help support that activity. And another way to look at it is we have a stress spin, which is really fascinating, where you look at, identify a particular stressor, and then see how does this stressor impact each of the 12 dimensions of wellness. And it's quite eye-opening, because if someone says, "I'm really stressed out," we know what they mean, because we've all been there. But isn't that a very generalized statement? What does it really mean? I'm stressed. But when you're able to look and see, oh my goodness, I'm less responsive, my breathing is much more constricted, I'm not breathing fully, my sensory awareness feels really shut down, I'm like the horse with blinders. I'm eating really impulsively and mindlessly and eating too much. I'm probably not moving nearly as much because I don't feel like getting up and going out and doing an activity. And my emotional state might be really, really constricted, and I might be really anxious and upset. And I'm probably not thinking really clearly, or overthinking, or reacting. And I could continue around, but you sort of get the idea. And this is why this model is so dynamic in terms of how it can give clear pictures of our own personal experience. And the other side of the stress spin is to look at how might each of these dimensions have an awareness or a self-care practice that could help alleviate that stress. So with breathing, a breathing practice to help, allow you to be, far more centered in all the things that I talked about before. Maybe eating in such a way that helps to exacerbate stress. Creating more movement in your life to help get yourself outside in nature and begin to alleviate the stress that way. Focus a little bit more on emotional intelligence. But there's so many different things that can be done to alleviate the stress. And when the person finishes that exercise, they feel like they have a treasure chest at their disposal of all these wonderful self-care practices and awareness, and they begin to feel, I think I really got this. I have all the tools to really deal with this stress, whereas before the stressor felt really amorphous and felt like they really didn't have the capacity to deal with it. And also in the same way, the wheel itself can allow someone to take a whole person approach towards any life issue, such as stress, or inability to sleep, or weight, or looking at our eating habits. So this is just a quick way to go through the wheel to try to give a little bit of a sense of its dynamism and how beautifully it reflects our actual experience. And really beginning to experience that everything is connected. And this is one of the nice things that students get as they go through a course utilizing the wellness inventory. They begin to understand how all of these dimensions interact in their own life. So with the wellness inventory, we can really help to open a door for the student's personal wellness journey, and the students become more motivated to improve their lives and their personal level of health and well-being, and helps to cultivate a deeper sense of self-responsibility while building a greater sense of self-efficacy and creating personal change through a process of small steps for continual improvement. And then it really maximizes the student's potential for optimal living. So let's look at what students actually can do with the wellness inventory. And this is going to be a 60,000-foot overview, and I'm going to give a live demo. So first they take a personal whole-person inventory in the 12 dimensions. There's 10 statements in each dimension, and these are positive, proactive, wellness, attitudes, behaviors, activities, or beliefs. And the person is asked, how true is this activity in my life right now on a scale of 0 to 10? And also, how motivated am I to improve my current level of wellness in that area? So I think you can see that this is this really stimulates awareness of new possibilities for change. So in addition to assessing, it's really an awareness tool to raise awareness of new possibilities for change. And I'm going to demo this in just a moment. So by taking the inventory, the student immediately receives their scores, the personal scores in the 12 dimensions of wellness. This is their wellness scores, the numeric scores, as well as they can actually see a pattern here. Is this a smooth, round wheel that would move well, or is it a little rough? And they'll see what are some of the areas that I'm actually doing pretty well in. Maybe these are areas I've been working on, or they're just things I'm naturally good at. And also see the areas that are more challenged, which may be areas that have been sort of off the radar screen or maybe impacted by stress, and areas of great opportunity. And then throughout the year, they have the ability, or throughout the semester, they have the ability to reassess any of the 12 dimensions of wellness on a weekly basis, so they're able to go back in and see their scores shift over time. They also receive their motivation scores, which identifies really their readiness for change and their motivation to improve, so they have a better idea of what's a good area for me to start in that I'm actually motivated in. Not that someone has been telling me, that my parents or my girlfriend or my doctor have been telling me that I need to do, because maybe I'm not ready to do that, but maybe I am ready to start moving in other directions. And then these motivations lead to these small steps to begin improving overall well-being and creating action steps to help support this growth over time. And with the action steps that are created, you create email reminders for accountability with the days of the week, time of the day, and also a subject line. They're able to track their action steps on a regular basis, as many times. They could come in 3 times a day if they wanted to. But they're able, on a scale of 0 to 10, look at their satisfaction with how they're doing with each of their action steps, with the idea of getting to a 10 where they've fully integrated that step into their life, so now that becomes a success. We also provide support from 3 virtual coach processes that are actually built into the system. These are wizards. These aren't people. We do train coaches as part of our business, but the virtual coach here is built into the system, and there are 3 processes that help people focus on what it is they really want to create in their lives, so they get clear on what the action steps are. There's a SMART step process for when they realize that they're not doing well with an action step, and it might be a little bit too big or generalized or unwieldy. Maybe they're telling themselves they need to walk an hour a day. Maybe they don't have an hour a day to walk or the discipline to do that. So they find something that's more manageable that they can start with. So the SMART step process helps them to really hone an action step into something that is really specific and realistic and something they actually can do. And then finally, after creating their first action step, after completing the assessment, they land on their personalized homepage where they'll remain for the rest of the semester, and then actually for the rest of the year, because they have a full year access. And they're able to personalize it with a meaningful photo and a meaningful quote, and we'll be doing a live demo shortly. But now we're looking at integrating the wellness inventory into college curriculum. How can we do that? And here we're really looking at creating a learning environment to enable students to gain valuable self-care skills and awareness for optimal well-being and performance. And again, we really start here using the wellness inventory as an organizing principle around the assessment. So the assessment is the first thing that they do, assessment and the 12 dimensions of wellness. So here, at the very beginning of the semester, students can complete a self-assessment in the 12 key dimensions of personal well-being, and then do it at the end of the semester as well. They're going to receive their wellness and motivation scores for each dimension and an overall wellness score. And they're also going to receive a report after taking the second full assessment at the end of the semester that tracks their progress in the 12 dimensions and also overall wellness scores between the initial and full assessment. And the assessments, as I mentioned, is designed to both assess and to stimulate awareness of new possibilities for change in their lives. So it really leads to a process of raising awareness for creating small steps for continual improvement in the areas of their highest motivation. So let me just do a quick live demo here of the assessment portion. So here we are live on that same home page, and we see all the key features of the wellness inventory here. We see an interactive wellness wheel where they can begin to learn more just by clicking over. And as I mouse over each dimension, I get a little description on the left. This helps the student become a little bit more familiar with each of these life processes, which are things that they do on a daily basis. They also can receive messages from our system and also from you, group messages that they can receive on their home pages. There's also an ability to see their action plan progress. This person has 3 action steps. And as I mouse over, I see what the action step is. And here's their inspirational quote and their photo. And if they've just completed the assessment, they will have already received their scores, but any time they can come in here and click. So here's their current well-being profile. So it shows, the wellness well-being scores in each of the 12 dimensions. Also, it shows their current motivation to improve. So I want to show the assessment here. And at this point, this individual has already taken the full assessment, so they actually have the capacity to go in at any point and reassess any one of the 12 dimensions, which is going to play very nicely, you'll see in a moment, into how the wellness inventory can be structured within a course with 12 weeks for the 12 dimensions, right in the center of a semester, and each week they can be focusing on a different dimension and reassessing that specific dimension as well. But I still can simulate what it's like to take the full assessment because it is the same feature. So when they're coming in at the very beginning, they register and log in, go through a little tour, and they start the assessment. So here's the first section of the assessment, self-responsibility and love. And you'll notice, and there's 10 statements here, and these are positive, proactive wellness attitudes, awarenesses, activities, lifestyle, or beliefs. And they're being asked, how true, on a scale of 0 to 10, is this statement in my life right now? Not last year, or not what do I know to be theoretically true or intellectually true, but what am I actually doing right now? And then, so for example, I recognize that I'm responsible for my health and well-being. Well, some people have a greater awareness of that than others. So let's say this person says, yeah, I practice yoga and I really watch my diet and try to get a good bit of exercise. So I might give myself a fairly high score, but I may not be really motivated to improve that right now because I think I'm doing pretty well and I've got a lot of classes and things going on. So I may not want to tackle that. And here's another. I'm an active participant in any health care I receive. So, and again, they might say, well, not so much. I basically just fairly docile when I go in. I'm a little intimidated to ask the doctor questions or the health professional questions. And how motivated am I to improve here? Well, again, this isn't really high on my radar screen at this point in my life. So I may not have a very high motivation. Then we come to another statement. I get between 7 and 9 hours of high-quality sleep per night. And the individual might say, oh, my goodness, I'm lucky if I get 5. So I might give myself a pretty low score here, but I may be very motivated because I'm seeing what the impact of not being able to sleep well and staying up too late and having to get up early has on my life. So I might have a very high motivation to improve here. So I think you can see that as people are going through and particularly get into the dimensions that are dealing specifically with particular aspects of our life and lifestyle, there are going to be certain areas that they're doing well, certain areas that are brand new to them, other areas which they may be doing fairly poorly, and they're going to have different levels of motivation. And what we're trying to sort of source out here is to get a sense of, give them an overall picture of sort of what their current well-being profile looks like, but more importantly, where am I currently most motivated to improve, because that's going to be more likely where I'm going to have the greatest possibility for improvement and success. So in taking the full assessment, they would go through, answer all 10 here, save it, go to the next section. They don't have to do it all at one sitting. They can come in and do half of it at one time and come back later and do the other half, or they could do 3 sessions if they want, but most people just go all the way through. So if I had completed, like in this case, let's say if I just did self-responsibility and self-love, and I went back to the scores, and actually whenever you reassess, it takes you directly to a link where you can click to see how your scores have been updated, and it shows you the dimension and which dimension you just did and how the scores changed, and it's also reflected in your wheel and your motivation scores. So you have real-time scoring throughout the semester, so the more the students get into it, the more they can actually see how they're growing and how they're changing. And another way that they can see their progress, there's a number of progress trackers here, and this one here is looking at their scores on particular dimensions from the current time and the most previous time, so they can see the last 2 times they've taken an assessment, a particular dimension, and see their level of improvement or if they've dropped. And they also can look at 2 full assessments and see what is my percentage of change and improvement or drop in any one of the 12 dimensions of wellness. And what I'm showing you right now is a demo that's constantly changing, so not necessarily reflecting like a real person. So let's go back into the PowerPoint. And again, I just touched on this. The Wellness Inventory is an organizing principle for curriculum where, with a weekly focus, you're able to focus on a specific dimension, like in self-responsibility and love in week 1, breathing in week 2, sensing in week 3, and there's a number of things that you can do. So with this weekly focus and the framework that the wheel provides, each week, so let's say it's self-responsibility and love. The students can all go in and reassess self-responsibility and love in the assessment icon. There's a commentary for each of the 10 statements in that dimension in the Self-Study Center that they can read, which I'll show you in a moment. And that's a great way to deepen awareness around that particular dimension to really make it your own. They also can access articles on that dimension in the Resource Center, as well as self-care practices for that dimension. So you can assign for them to select a couple of self-care practices to do that week in that particular dimension. And then finally, they can make journal entries in that dimension. So let's go back and do a live demo here. So the first, which we just went over, was reassessing the weekly dimension. They can go to the Study Center, which has each of the 12 dimensions. It also shows their current scores. And then let's say they want to read a little bit more in eating. Here's the 10 statements from the eating dimension, organized according to their level of motivation, high, moderate, or low, from the last time they assessed. And also, you'll notice that they can click, and there's a short half-page to one-page commentary on each of the statements. So part of their assignment could be to read that week, to read these 10 statements in the Self-Study Center. They also can go to the Resource Center. There we go. Like, let's say if they're going to the Eating Resource Center. So here's expert articles, self-care practices, so they could select a couple of self-care practices in that dimension to do, and also recommended books and audios. And finally, they can go into the journal, and they have the capacity to journal in each of the 12 dimensions. The journal can be used for a number of things. This is a great one to be able to go in and just to reflect about that particular dimension of wellness and to write what are they experiencing, what's coming up for them in the reading, what new awarenesses do they have. And that's a great thing they could do each week, making a journal entry or some journal entries for each of the 12 dimensions. The journal can also be used just to note what I'm doing during the week. Well, I drank 4 glasses of water today. I took my morning walk. I was able to get to sleep by 11:30, which is a great thing for me. And I really was watching my fast food. They also can write about their wellness journey and their challenges. So the journal is a wonderful tool because there's been so much research done in psychological circles about the benefits for one's own personal well-being and psychological health for writing about your own experience and getting it down on paper. And here's just an example of some journal entries. They can journal in different colors. They're all organized by the specific dimension. They also can edit and delete and of course the journal is completely private. So those are some of the things that they can do in the program that's really sort of structured around doing this in a weekly basis. Now we go to the actual lifestyle and well-being improvement, and that's using the action plan based on the intelligence gathered and awareness gathered from the assessment and from their readings and study to create these small steps for continual improvement. So throughout this semester, the students can use the Wellness Inventory's action plan to create small, targeted action steps for continual improvement. And again, the assessment continually raises awareness and creates awareness for new motivations to action. So what can the students do? They have a suite of tools in the action plan where they can create their action steps. They have email reminders for accountability. They have the ability to track their level of satisfaction and progress with action steps. They can create successes. They have 3 virtual coach processes to support them in successful change. And here's some screenshots. So here's just a quick screenshot of the action plan. And here's where the person can see their 3 action steps. Here's where they can here's an example of setting their email reminders. For Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m., I'm going to get an email that says, take morning walk. And here's an example of the virtual coach focus process where, what issue or area of my life is most calling for my attention right now, which is the first of 5 questions. They can type in their response, and they can also view 5 examples to help them get a better idea. And the beauty here is that through this process, as well as through the virtual coach Smart Step process, where they take a typical unwieldy action step, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, which may be a complete non-starter because they simply don't have the time. And it's taking that step and walking through a series of questions that are designed to make it more specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-oriented. And by the time they get to the end, they will have been able to hone that step into something that's more workable, more realistic, more likely they're going to do on a regular basis. And the beauty here is that the students are learning about behavior change and how to create improvement in their lives in this small step methodology. So there's a lot of wisdom they're gaining here that they're going to be able to use for the rest of their life. And then they're able to track their progress on a regular basis on a scale of 0 to 10. And they're also able to view their progress both on their home page as well as in the progress icon. And here's their progress on their 3 action steps. And finally, once they've successfully integrated an action step into their life, and it's sort of a 10 out of 10 in tracking, at that point, they realize that they no longer need to have it as an action step or an email reminder. At this point, there's a process to simply move it over to their successes. And now they can look at a growing list of successes, things they've integrated into their life. They can reflect upon how each of these is providing positive benefits for their life. And this is another great use of the journal to write about their successes. And finally, we have the tools for instructors. But let me just hold this place here. I want to just go right back real quick and do one more quick tour here in the action plan. But I want to show it to you dynamically, and live. So here we have the action plan with the 3 action steps, and we're focusing on this one here. Take a 15-minute morning walk 3 days a week. Here's where the reminder is set, and so in this case, let's do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m. Take morning walk. So now we have this email reminder will be sent. We can track our progress over time. So over time, I may be moving up and back, but eventually, if this is the right step and the right thing for me right now, I'm going to get to a 10. Now I have the ability to say, you know what? I no longer need to have this as an active step. I can move it onto my successes. So I click on Add to Successes. It just left. I go to Successes, and here's my action step. So now I've added it to my successes, and again, this is a great way to be able to look at what I'm doing and see the benefits of even these small steps that I've integrated. So none of these are big heroic steps I'm going to go, tell everybody about. Hey, I'm running a half marathon or something, or I've lost 40 pounds, but now I just gained it back. But these are things that are sustainable that I can bring successfully into my life. And if I get to a point where I'm really busy and really stressed, and I find that I'm no longer doing this step, I can click on it here, and do you want to make this active? And I can say yes, and now I can come back here, and it's back on my action plan. So I can get it back to where I'm doing it again, get fully satisfied, and move it back into my successes. So this really follows Prochaska's trans-theoretical model of the 6 stages of change, which is a realistic way that people work. And then finally, I could look here and say, well, let's do a SMART step process on this particular action step. But let's say it was an hour morning walk, and I'm going through the 3 stages of the SMART step process, and eventually I hone it down to get to something more practical like this. Or for someone, it might just be take a 10-minute walk one morning a week. That's how they have to get started. But eventually they might be able to increase the duration and the frequency. So that's a lot here about the action plan and how that all works. So now I'm going to go back and complete here on the PowerPoint. So now we will get the tools for instructors. So we have reporting, engagement, and communication tools that are available to you so that you receive access to the reporting, engagement, communication tools that support your students' personal wellness and to verify their results. And these include individual wellness and motivation scores, individual progress tracking, aggregate class scores, aggregate reports showing class scores filtered by 8 demographic variables, which are really interesting, and probably most important, engagement reports. Instructors love this because it shows all their students, and then it shows the level of activity of each student in key areas of the program. Also shows an aggregate view as well. But you see, did they do both of the full assessments? How many times did they reassess the individual dimensions? So did they do their assignments? How many action steps did they create over the course? How many times did they track their progress? Very important to keep them engaged. And it's good that they know that you know what they're doing. And also, were they able to create any successes during the semester? How many journal entries did they make? How many statement commentaries did they read? How many articles, self-care practices, and other resources did they access? So really, very effective tool. And finally, tools to communicate directly to the wellness home pages of all students. And you also can put a message, if you want to get that specific, to an individual student, if that's important, or you can send a collective message that all students get. So here's a few of those. Here's the individual student scores, and these are actual scores, but I've whited out most of the name. So you can see when they completed it, what their wellness and motivational scores are. You can click on these to see the actual scores. And then if you click here on homepage, you're going to get the student homepage view where you see their current real-time wellness score, how many action steps they have. This person has 2. They have over here, you can take some notes here if you want. This part is really more for coaching, so it's really not necessary to utilize. But here, the message to the clients, which in this case is a message to students, this is where if you wanted to post an individual message to show up on that student's homepage, you would be able to do that. And here's the aggregate report, and this is an actual small class where you're seeing the where they're strong, where they're weak, and what's really the pattern here. The demographic report showing the scores filtered by 8 different, this is just 4 of the 8 you can see here. And then you can click and see the wheel and the motivation score for each of these selected demographics. And then this is the engagement report where you can see how many scores did they create, how many action steps did they create, how many times did they track, how many successes did they create, how many journal entries, how many times did they view the resource center, study center, and then how many reassessments did they do. And actually we have a new version of this, which I thought I had the new screen up, which also has a place for did they do both full assessments. And here's another tool where you can send a group message to the students, and this puts the same message on the home page of each of the participating students. So this could be used for announcements, or maybe it could be used for a wellness tip or a reminder or a stress tip. It could be a whole range of ways you could be communicating health and wellness messaging to the students throughout the semester. And to end, I wanted to share some faculty comments and also let you know how sort of what a no-brainer solution we've created to make this really easy for instructors. No cost to the university, no cost to the instructor, and then 50% discount where they're actually able to go in and sign up for the wellness inventory, do the program with a special promo code, and then you're able to view the results of your class. So here's one from Pam Burris, who's at UMass Amherst, with her Honors Wellness class. And she says, the Wellness Inventory is the foundation for an Honors Wellness course that I teach at a local university. Students report numerous benefits such as better concentration, improved sleep, less pressure, stress, improved communication with others, greater insight and self-awareness, and new ways to play and life-changing choices. And here's one from Dr. Pauline McCabe from Pauline McCabe from RMIT School of Health Sciences in Melbourne, Australia. And they've been using this in their master's and undergraduate level for 4 years. The Wellness Inventory is a fantastic tool for our students who consistently report how much they enjoy using the program, the great graphics which provide unexpected insights into their wellness, and the information and explanations. It's a wonderful teaching and learning tool with great visual feedback and providing a significant wow factor. And here's Dr. Jane McCool from the nursing school at Northeastern University. I find great value in using the Wellness Inventory with my classes. Students are surprised and intrigued after completing the initial assessment. The process enables them to look at their lives from a whole person perspective and to explore 12 key areas that influence their overall well-being. Students report improved ability to manage stress, better quality of life, slowing down, and gaining perspective on their lives. Students develop tools for self-care and internal self-regulation, which can serve them throughout their lives. And finally, from Debbie Dunn at Westchester, I use the Wellness Inventory as a foundation for my stress management course at Westchester University. Students find it to be life-changing, the depth of information available online to be remarkable, and they feel transformed by the end of the semester. Interestingly, when I poll one class at the end of the semester, as to which of the 12 dimensions of well-being that they most needed to improve. The winner was breathing. And finally, a few statements from students. I truly enjoyed this class. I think it did wonders for my semester stress and provided me with great tools to carry with me for the rest of my life. This should be a gen ed class that everyone should have to take. It was really grounding and valuable in changing my way of thinking and my daily actions and choices. And one of my favorites, this is from Pam Burris' class. For their final student presentation, one of the students did an amazing wellness rap. And it was so moving and profound that Pam asked her to go back to her dorm and record it and put it on YouTube. And I'd be happy to send a link to anyone if you want to contact me. And every time I watch this, it sort of I almost get tears in my eyes because it's so eloquent and so moving. So that's some of the creativity that the students can come up with. And finally, we have the program costs and features. We've set it up in a unique way where there's no cost to the university or the instructor. We provide a registration link and a unique code provided for each class. Students register directly online and use the class promo code to receive a 50% discount on the annual Wellness Cemetery subscription, so they're only paying $20 instead of $40. And they have an access to all the program features during class and also for the remainder of the year so they can keep using the program after the class is over. And the instructor receives administrative access to view reports, use communication tools, and also a promotional web page just to introduce the students to the program. And a couple of kind things that have been said. Here's from the Stanford Research Institute. The Wellness Inventory is a foundational wellness tool. And then military medicine referring to us as an exemplar assessment. And if you want to learn more, here's my contact info. We love working with the college environment, both in curriculum as well as in student wellness and working with student leaders, using the Wellness Inventory with faculty and staff as well. So and also looking at how do you create a culture of well-being on campus that really supports the well-being of all participants. And this is really a new trend on college campuses today. So thank you so much for your time. You can reach me on my direct line at 310-823-9553 or by email at jim@wellpeople.com. And our main website is wellpeople.com. And if you want to read a little more about universities and colleges, click on the licensing icon and then click on college student wellness. And then anyone who's interested in finding out more about our Wellness Inventory certification training to even get further skills in being trained as a wellness coach and also in implementing the program in even more creative and profound ways, you can go to certifywellness.com. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Be well.